Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the organizational meeting of the Milford High School Building Committee here at Milford High School at the Teacher Resource Center. Today is July 25th, 2024. Tonight's meeting is being televised and recorded. The Milford High School, for background, the Milford High School Building Committee was formed with town meeting approval of Article 11 of the May 20th, 2024 annual town meeting, and in accordance with the provisions of 963 CMR 210. With that, we have an agenda for everybody's edification. I'm John Erickson, I'm the senior member of the school committee. I'll be opening this meeting. I'll be looking for an organizational vote coming up, and then I'll be turning it over to others here. So with that, the first order of business is to elect a chair and vice chair of this committee, after which we'll have introductions of each member, a project update from the school, the Milford School Committee and administration, and additional agenda items as posted. So with that,
can I say something real quick for 3 minutes?
Sure.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Michael. Excited to be here. You know, I just want to point out we have a lot of new faces here, which is really, really important and really exciting. Milford has an old tradition where sometimes people will run for seats and they call it in, try to whip their votes ahead of time, right? And I think this is a practice that just needs to end, right? It's very awkward. It's not conducive to the business. School committee ended it 5 years ago. And, you know, for the people who are new, they don't get the chance to really understand and hear who's doing what they want to do. And so I think it's really important that as we enter this, nomination, that we all have an open mind. We go into it and we vote the right leaders to run this group. But it's really important to me that, we end all the boards of town, end these, calling people ahead of time and these tribal survivor things. It's super awkward, right? And so I think going into this, I think we need to have an open mind. So I'm really excited.
That's great.
With that being said, can I bring up one point? I don't know quite a few of the people that are here. I think it's very difficult to pick a chair or a vice chair without knowing anybody's backgrounds or what they've done or not. So I think the order of this should be that we introduce ourselves, what we do, why we wanted to serve on this committee, and what our availabilities are before we decide who can be a chair or not be a chair.
Well, I mean, this isn't my meeting, this isn't my agenda. I'm here to open it and to start the organization. Is there any discussion on that?
I think that makes sense to me. Because I think some people don't even know each other over here.
Yeah, so in school committee, we actually just ask, who's interested in being chair?
Well, no, so let's, I guess whereas I'm still running the structure of this meeting, if there's no objections, I'll switch the agenda item order and jump to introductions as opposed to looking for a nomination at this point, but is there any objection to that, or?
I think that's reasonable based upon the attitudes. And I'm looking around the room and I'm seeing head shaking and nodding. So it seems to me that would see a very reasonable
I'm
thing
going
to do.
by the agenda, so I assume it would be as
Yeah.
received a copy. So with that, if we're doing introductions, why don't we just, I've introduced myself. We'll start with Michael and just go clockwise.
Michael Ayajanian, I'm on school committee. The relevance for me being on this committee, I ran a private business for 12 years. We worked with, we had the National Park Service, the state, Massachusetts. We ran, 15 sites across 5 states. And so my background actually is a lot of facility management, contract management, and actually submitting RFPs. So I'm really excited to be here.
Eamon Cunningham, I'm a staff member at the high school. I'm the curriculum team leader of English. It's going to be my 19th year working at Milford High. I'm a resident of town. My kids go to school, so invested for a lot of reasons. So looking forward to it.
Kevin McIntyre, superintendent of schools. This is my 9th year superintendent, 12th year.
Carmen Torres. I'm a designer specialized in K-12 to higher education. I'm here as a volunteer, and I'm happy to be here.
Al Correa, old Milford person. I've been involved with the financing of the town for 24 years, I think somewhere along that line. Been happy that the town, in my mind, brings better value than any town around. And my interest here, we'll talk about it when we introduce ourselves further, is really to make sure that we have the financing and the support of the town and town meeting to not only deal with the school as it is, but to understand what we want for the school. Because there's 2 or 3 options that we're gonna have to discuss with town meeting members to get money allocated. So that's it.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Walsh. I'm a member of the Milford Select Board. I did 9 years on the Milford School Committee, so I'm very familiar with this room.
You make that sound like a prison term.
He did, Kevin, he absolutely did.
It's very nice to be here this evening. I am retired. I spent 37 years in the automobile industry and very fortunate to have retired young. And I love serving the community of Milford and look forward to doing a lot of great things with this committee. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Bruce. I'm a strong believer in the public school system in America. I think it's one of the things that makes this country great. I have 3 children who graduated from this high school. They all went on to multiple degrees afterwards. Can't say enough about the education from the Milford Public School System. I spent 23 years as a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals in Milford, 15 years as its chairman. I was on the Stacy Middle School Ad Hoc Committee, deciding what was going to be done there. 2 terms elected to the school committee from '04 to 2010. My last year I was vice chairman when I decided that 6 years was enough. I was on the Brookside Building Committee when we renovated Brookside. As part of that project, we built the Early Childhood Center in this building. While I was on the school committee, we did the Milford Parking Lot Project. Most recently, I was vice chairman of the Woodland School Building Committee, where we built most of 1,000 square foot, 1,000 student building that was $2 million under budget and $1 million over scope, and I'm currently the chairman of the Board of Water Commissioners in Milford.
Joe Calagione, I'm the planning board representative. I've been a member of the planning board for 24 years, town meeting member for 33 years. I graduated from the old high school. I'm a registered professional engineer in the state of Massachusetts. Used to be a few other states, but those are all gone because I'll say I'm retired now. I probably work about 2 hours a week. I'm also a member of the Design Build Institute of America. I have a significant experience in multiple contracting vehicles for various building types. I've been a design manager for numerous jobs, including at the time the largest public works job in Canada at the time. I spent 9.5 years of my career in Canada. And obviously, my granddaughter is going to Milford Public Schools now. My children went to Milford Public Schools. For those of you that are, my family has been invested in this town for generations. And I wanted to be a member of this committee because I felt that I could add significant value to the committee.
My name is Rick Villani, lifelong Milford resident. I am a graduate of this high school, so that tells you probably is time to get a new one, 1975. I am currently the town administrator. I've been a town administrator for 12 years. So I was on the Woodland School Building Committee as a member, and I look forward to working with all of you on this great project.
My name is Patrick Holland. I am a trial attorney for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I am the former assistant town council to the town of Milford. I too was born and raised in Milford. I graduated from this high school. I served on the school committee, including a stint as chairman. I serve presently on the Housing Authority. I've done that for 8 years. Chairman for a couple of years. I was also on the Woodland School Building Committee, where we delivered the largest elementary school building in the Commonwealth at the time. I was the member of the school committee when we obtained the funds from town meeting for the feasibility study. I was also part of the MSBA process, the defense of our project. We went into Boston. John was there. We defended the building. And so I was awfully proud of that building, and I'm hopeful that we're going to be awfully proud of this building as well.
I am Mitch City, Milford resident, grew up in the town of Milford, also attended this high school. I'm the current town administrator in the town of Hopedale. I have two young daughters, not yet of school age, but looking forward to them attending this building when it's completed. Hopefully we'll be done by then. Prior to my current position, I worked for the Massachusetts Department of Higher Ed. I have a lot of experience overseeing capital projects, working with DCAM, MSBA, overseeing two capital projects right now in the town of Hopedale on Eden Street, including some capital improvements for auditorium and the roof of the Hopedale Junior Senior High School. So I'm excited to work with you all, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Hi everyone, my name is Mike Berengia. I just moved to Milford last year. I'm interested in being in this high school building committee because I just welcomed my son, my first son. He's 6 months old now, and thank you very much. And I'm very invested now, and I want to see him come through the schools, and I'm just very interested in this project. I'm a project manager, by the way.
Chris Wilson, Milford School Committee member. Not originally from Milford, but been here for 20 years. So I've invested my time in giving back. Said both on school committee, also I'm on planning board with Joe. Joe's the representative from planning board. I'm the representative from school committee, just to keep that clear, that part of it. You know, here to offer my mechanical engineering experience and also be a representative from the school committee side. So just looking forward to working with everybody in this room as we kick this project off.
My name is Carlos Peña. I'm Director of Facilities of the Milford District School. My background is was Director of Johnson & Wells, Director of Engineering Service for Johnson & Wells for 8 years. I worked for Rice Engineering for 5 years. HVAC designer and HVAC license here in Massachusetts. An electrical engineer, network and telecommunications. I like to fix things with the block. And I'm very happy to work for the Milford district because every day is a good day. So,
All right, well, thank you all. At this point, we'll move on to appointment of a chairperson and vice chairperson. Do we have any nominations for chair? Mr.
John?
Walsh.
I'd like to nominate Jonathan Bruce to be the chairman of the Milford High School Building Committee. If I may elaborate for a few minutes. As I said earlier, I served on the school committee for 9 years. 6 of those years I served with Jonathan Bruce. And one thing that we all have to realize is that when you're on a committee, you're not always going to agree. And it's okay to agree to disagree. But one thing about Jonathan was if he didn't agree with you or you didn't agree with him, okay, you were able to work it out because what Jonathan stated earlier, in his heart always was the best interest of the students of this district. And I really truly believe that everything that he had listed earlier, I can tell you he's accomplished. I was fortunate to serve 2 years as chairman of the Milford School Committee, and when I was chairman, Woodland School was under construction. And there were times where that project wasn't going very smooth. And it was through the leadership of Jonathan and, God rest his soul, Aldo Chakey, that project did in fact finish. As Mr. Holland stated earlier when he came into the room, they delivered the largest elementary school at the time in the state of Massachusetts, and under budget. And when we opened the school, we still had little hiccups that were going on in that building. And Jonathan Bruce did not walk away from that project. He stayed with that project till it was totally, in his eyes, not our eyes, his eyes, completed. And that being said, a project of this magnitude, of this scale, is going to need not only a committee, it's going to need leadership of that committee to move us forward at all times. And I strongly feel that Jonathan Bruce, serving as chairman of this committee, is the best decision that every single one of us in this room can make. That being said, I will repeat myself, I would like to nominate Jonathan Bruce to be the chairman of the Milford High School Building Committee.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Before I entertain a second, Mr. Bruce, will you, if you're nominated and elected, will you accept the position of chair?
Yeah, no martial arts pledge here. Yes.
So with that, we have a second from Mr. Correa. Before we get to any discussion, do we have any separate or other nominations for the position of chair of this committee? Okay, having that, I'll open it to discussion.
I agree with Mike Walsh, Jonathan Bruce. I've met with him multiple times about this project. I think he'll have the tenacity to drive it forward. And also, a point of pride for the town, the MSBA still has Woodland as a premier project. And so I think that is a testament to the Woodland School Committee, as well as Patrick was on as well too, and I think some others here too. So yeah, I think it's a great choice.
I don't wanna-
Patrick, either
Go
way.
ahead, Patrick.
I just, I had an opportunity to serve, I think, almost 4 years with Aldo Chakey on the Woodland School Building Committee. And Aldo, God rest his soul, had a number of qualities that made him ideal at chairing that committee. Aldo knew that as the first among equals, it was his responsibility to listen first and speak last. He knew that it was his responsibility to make sure that everyone had a voice when they were sitting in one of those meetings, that everybody's opinion was equally as important, especially if he didn't agree with that opinion. And I think it's a testament to his character that he's sort of able to set aside himself and focus on the business of the committee. Coming, and for those of you who know Aldo, I don't know how many of the people in this room knew him. He's a wonderful man. My initial thought, I thought I might come in here and nominate Al Correa, because I think Al's cut from the same mold, quite frankly, and can offer that kind of leadership. What I can say about John, and I've known John for 40 years, what I can say about John is that he is honest to a fault sometimes, and he would never let a project that his name was attached to fail. And if John is confident that he can embody those qualities in Aldo that made that building committee so successful, then I'd be happy to offer him my support.
I have nothing but fond memories and respect for Aldo. I used to speak to Aldo every morning, 6:15. He would call me, I would call him, we knew we were up. Just a wonderful man, and he's a great role model for anybody and everybody, for sure.
Quick question. And this might be a housekeeping thing later on in the meeting. Are these positions going to be annual appointments, or do we know that yet, or will we talk about that later?
I think it merits discussion.
I would say for the point of this agenda item, it's unless somebody wants to amend the motion, or we don't have a motion, we have a nomination, so I'd say that needs to be discussed as this meeting evolves.
Just curious.
Chris, did you?
I was going to bring up that same thing where most of our boards that many of us serve on in this room, it's kind of a 1 year, and then we reorg. Many times the same chairperson moves on, and it's not looking towards Jonathan that we would want to remove him as that. But again, it gives that opportunity to have that discussion. So that was kind of going down that same lines, but it sounds like more of a housekeeping item for the future without derailing the current nomination.
If I can.
Okay, either one of us can jump in.
Well,
My
I said the same thing.
understanding was that the appointment will be for the duration of the task at hand, which
Right.
is to build a new school. Now, someone like me, if this takes 8 years, likely I'm not gonna even retire probably before then. Mike might not be a board of select, no, I hope you are, Mike. But, so my understanding is this, and if we read the bylaw and why we're here, my understanding, I'll get clarification on it, but the idea of reorganizing every year, to me, does not make sense.
Yeah, my understanding, if I can, is that this is an ad hoc committee, so there's no real bylaw, or there's nothing governing this that would call for a reorg. I think, though, that from my position, what I'm looking for, what's important, and I think what Mr. Bruce has kind of put together over the last, some of the largest projects the town's overseen in the last few years, whether it's the acquisition of the water company or the the school project. You need continuity and strong leadership and organized leadership in a project like this. My fear with constant reorgs, if this is a 4 or 5 year project, is things will get lost. People will have different leadership styles, organizational styles. I think for all intents and purposes, a board or committee like this, you can get as involved intricately as you want. So in my opinion, the chairmanship, while it's extremely important for organizational purposes, everyone's going to have the opportunity to weigh in. So to Administrator Valani's point, my understanding was these positions would be for the duration of the project for continuity, and if there's no, I guess, legal need to reorg on an annual basis.
Al?
I think realistically, there are rules set up. The state has said there will be somebody from this committee, there'll be 2 from this one, 3 from that one. As long as you're still in your position, like Michael will pick on you, since you're easy. He's the select board's nominee. If he's no longer on the select board, well, you got a legitimate question of the person coming in to replace Mike on the select board wanting the seat. I think the other thing is continuity. You brought it up, and I agree with you. You think that this year Jonathan's vision is this, then next year Joe's vision is that, then the year after that Sally's vision is this. It doesn't make any sense to me. We'll all have our input, but leadership starts at the top. And I can't think of a better person to lead because Woodland, Brookside, you think of the projects that have come in on budget, on time, or even better. You didn't have constant reorgs. And that would be my biggest worry, is that if you're reorging every year, you could really lose momentum.
I'm not suggesting, it came up multiple times, so it's just clarification. So.
So, I mean, no, but I think it's good, Mike, that
Yeah.
we clarify it to say, once we have this nomination set, what is the will of the committee? Do you believe we should reorg every year? Or as long as you live within the boundaries set by the state, you know, if you're a select board member for 4 years, then you're on the committee for 4 years. It's just when you change that hat, there's an option to change.
If I may, just to add to that, the 2 building committees, the 2 formal building committees that I was on before, which was Brookside, Bill Sanborn was the chairman from beginning to end. In Woodland, Aldo Chakey was chairman from beginning to end. The one thing I can promise you is that the membership here will change. There will be people that will choose not to run for re-election. There will be people that will not succeed in re-election. There will be people that get tired of it, and unfortunately, on the Woodland Committee, there were people that died while they were serving. So it's this, the people in this room will dramatically change between today and the time the new school opens. There'll be a lot of new faces here. I thought long and hard before I even volunteered to do this. I'm 10 years older than I was 10 years ago when we started Woodland. And I thought long and hard. I had a lot of discussions with my wife, and I came to the decision that I had one more in me, and that's why I'm in this room tonight. And I appreciate the select board for appointing me, and I would respectfully request your support as chairman of this committee.
So for the purposes of this item, which is on the table, I think all of that discussion was meaningful, and we can continue it. I just wanted to point out that this discussion went not quite sideways, but it brought up good points that this committee needs to consider as they make this vote.
Yeah, if I may have one brief comment, and then we can move on to the vote. I like to argue all sides of an issue. Right? It's my responsibility to do that in my job. I think that Mike started out the meeting with a very interesting point. And I think his point, and if I'm mischaracterizing it, please tell me if I'm wrong, but he doesn't want anyone to walk into this room and learn 10 minutes after sitting down that the most important reason you came today had already been decided before you ever walked through that door. right? That there was a decision that was made, and everyone wasn't included in it, right? And now somebody's left out, somebody's in the cold. And John's right. The people on this committee are gonna change. And there are gonna be people who walk through that door who may feel like they don't have a role in what's happening here because they don't have an opportunity to decide who the first among equals are. I think that this committee has a responsibility to have a vision on how this building is going to move forward. And everybody's voice in this room is just as important to that mission as the chairperson's voice. And so I don't know that the vision of the committee changes necessarily just because we choose to reappoint on an annual basis, because the committee could choose to reappoint the same person over and over and over again. Now, I don't know where I fall on this issue. I fall on the side of transparency, that much I know. I don't know where I fall on this issue. But I don't think it's an open and shut kind of case. I don't think there's only one side of the issue. I think there are very reasonable arguments to make on both sides, and that's all I'll say.
Can I remind people, just say your name first, so to speak, just from the list.
Oh, Pat Holland.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Patrick. Anyone else? So with that, we have a nomination and a second. All in favor of appointing Jonathan Bruce as chairman of the Milford High School Building Committee? Say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
All opposed? That's unanimous.
All
With
right.
that, I'll turn the meeting over to your new chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson.
Jonathan Bruce.
Are you gonna run out as fast as you can, John, or is that?
Aren't you right back here in about 33 minutes?
Yeah, 30 minutes, yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm honored, humbled, moved to a certain point of the confidence that this community has put in me to lead this project forward. As Pat said, we're all equal here. The only power of the chair is to set the agenda and to run the meeting. That's it. It starts and stops right there. And I listen, continue to listen. Every voice is important. As chairman, my first order of business is to open for nominations for vice chairman. Any nominations for vice chairman?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate Michael Akjanian for vice chair.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman? I'd
Yeah,
like
wait,
to-
the second?
Second.
Okay, second, okay.
I would like to nominate Al Correa for vice chairman of the Milford High School Building Committee. If I may again have a few minutes. What was mentioned earlier is that a key factor in this project is gonna be the finances. And my years of serving the community of Milford through the Milford Youth Center, the Milford School Committee, the Board of Selectmen, and other boards that I've been involved in. I've had many, many meetings that I've been involved with Al Correa as a member of the Finance Committee, and I've had many discussions with Al Correa. And I mentioned earlier that, you know, we're not always going to agree on a particular topic, and that's true. My dealings with Al Correa, many a night I walked out of a room and I just didn't agree. But we were able to work it out because, again, Al Correa, as a member of the Finance Committee, many years as chairman of the Milford Finance Committee, always had the citizens, the taxpayers of this community at heart. And I can tell you that honestly because we're involved together right now on something at Draper Park, and Al made a comment at one of our meetings that came out, and he said, but we really need to get the citizens of the community, we need to have their input. And to me, that was so important that he took the time to say, you know what, and we kind of were looking at certain areas, but Al was able to come in with a different set of eyes and say, but did we ever open it up to the people of the community? That's Al Correa. And I think that a project that's as large as this is, and is gonna have major financial impact to our community, what better person to have serving as the vice chairman of the committee than somebody that has the years of experience, not only on the Milford Finance Committee, but in finance. And that's why I would like to nominate Al Correa to be vice chairman of this committee.
I'll second.
Who said?
Mitch for city.
Mitch.
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I have a point for discussion. Patrick Holland, I was.
Thank you.
I can't tell you how much respect I have for Al. I've known Al for probably 15 years. He was a mentor to me when I was in the downtime. He is someone whose opinion I respect immensely. Which is why it's with great difficulty I say that splitting the chair and co-chair among representatives of the selectman's office and representatives of the school department is something that I think probably makes a lot of sense. I've known Mike for 35 years. He is tenacious sometimes to the point of exhaustion. Quite frankly, I think he is just as capable as John Bruce of making sure people get their jobs done. It's the same type of tenacity that I see in him. And I think, and I wasn't sure what I was gonna do when I came in today. I think based upon the discussion that's happened today, and based upon, I think my desire to split the appointments between the Board of Selectmen appointees and the school department appointees, I think that's probably the way that I'm gonna vote, but we don't lose, this committee doesn't lose, regardless of who gets chosen as vice chair of this committee.
Anyone else?
Quickly, Mr. Chair.
Chris?
Yeah, the reason why, I nominated Mike was his background work leading up to this point. Mike has really spearheaded and really kind of jumped in full into the deep end where it came in with the MSBA, and really came to our committee with a lot of information and presented at all of our meetings with timelines and where we are and where we need to go. So Mike has a very vested interest, and again, that was my reasoning for nominating Mike today.
Anyone else? Okay, what I want to comment on is, as I mentioned earlier, the people in this room will change. When Chris and Mike came to me early on looking for institutional knowledge, if you will, from my background in building schools, the one thing I mentioned to both of them, and it's certainly not a rule that has to be followed, but an important thing to remember, and I mentioned it earlier today, is elected positions come and go much more quickly than appointed positions. As far as school department representation on this committee, we have a superintendent, a principal who's not here today, unfortunately, 2 school committee members and a teacher. That's a full third of the committee. Of the 15 is school department representation. I work with anybody. I think Patrick had mentioned that earlier on. I work with anybody. But I think it needs to be considered and considered in your decision about the continuity. In Al's career, in the financing aspect of it, the long history with the finance committee, and he is incredibly effective on the town meeting floor. And just remember, the next time this committee goes to the town meeting, we're gonna be asking them to fund a very expensive project. And any other discussion?
I just have one point. I don't know that that's any different than any member that's here, to be honest, in terms of Finance Committee has to be reappointed. They may not get reappointed. I could lose in 4 years. Michael could lose in 4 years. There's no, I don't think there's anything there that I obviously the people that work within the system probably have a little more control over themselves in school committee, school members and teachers and stuff than we will. But I think all of us could be someplace different next year. I don't think we can get hung up on those types of things. I think we got to pick people that we think would serve the committee the best at this point. And to be perfectly honest, I almost think that, and I understand everything about continuity and all. I think there may be points in time where somebody might be a better person than the person that's there at that point in time, because the dynamics have changed as to where we are in this process. That being said, my vote is based on who I think can help this process go forward right now the best, and that's where I'm at.
I realize I'm just an audience member at this point, but as a point of order, was there a second on each of those nominations? I didn't hear one on both.
Yes,
I
we
may have
had, so
missed
for
one.
Al it was Mitch, and for Chris,
I know.
it was Mike. Mike?
No,
Joe.
Joe, I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm
Joe.
sorry, I missed it, and I just didn't want
Yeah,
to say
it was,
anything.
it was. Joe Caligione.
Is there any other discussion? Well, in the order and Al.
Al Korea. Patrick, you brought up a great point. When Jonathan first asked me what I considered asking for the vice chairmanship, I thought long and hard. And I thought about the financing. Because I don't see the challenge in front of this group being this high school, and call it the new high school, but this was the new high school in '74. And I beat you by 1 year.
You are older than I am, yes.
I graduated out of this building.
That was Rick Valani.
with the
Sorry.
first class. But when you start thinking about it, I truly believe the challenge is gonna be finances. We've never, as a town, asked for $180 million to $200 million. The rumor mill's already starting. You get wind of, well, you're considering moving the 8th grade to the high school? Why would you do that? How much is that gonna cost? We don't need to do that now, we can deal with it when we do Stacy. If you try and explain to people that no decision's been made, nobody has said we're gonna move 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade into the new high school. Till the feasibility study's done, till the committee puts their recommendations together, nobody knows. But the one thing we do know is we're gonna get pushback on finance. Moving the 8th grade to the new high school, and again, I'm sorry for calling it the new high school, this to me is the old high school, is a challenge, and it's gonna have a cost to it. Adding a field house, which is a generational opportunity that people have talked about. Other people have said, well, we'll come back to it. Well, the problem is, Milford has 5 major schools, and you all know it. Each school lasts 40 to 50 years before a major renovation or a new school has to be built. By the time we're done with the high school, my opinion only, we're gonna forget about the high school and start talking about Stacy full-time. And people I've worked with know my favorite saying is, there's a school coming. You know, is why are you putting $1.7 million away in short-term stabilization? Because there's a school coming. Why are you building the stabilization account up? Because there's a school coming. We're gonna be looking every 8 years at having to do some major financing. People are scared. You know, when they start seeing the price that Franklin, Tri-County did at $288 million. Now remember, it's $80 a million. For every million the town meeting spends, you get assessed $80. So if you're talking $7 million in interest coming our way at least, times $80, you start talking serious money, and people, and it's hard because we're so excited about the new Milford people that come in, that are doing well. That's great news, but we can't forget the people who built Milford, who are living on $1,500 a month, Social Security. Adding $500 to their annual bill is significant. So we're gonna need somebody with some credibility. Now, I like what Patrick just said. I would be all for splitting the role and letting Mike run the admin side with the school committee, and me feeding to Jonathan the financial side. Somebody's got to get up in front of town meeting and pitch this. Somebody's got to get up in front of the capital committee and pitch this. I don't think we'll have a problem with the capital committee. In all transparency, I'm the chair. okay? Somebody's gotta get up in front of the finance committee and pitch this. Mike would probably do a great job. I think I can do an okay job because I've been doing it for 24 years. So from that end, I'm all for splitting it.
Meaning having two vice chairs.
Yes.
Motion, I motion that we elect two vice chairs.
Is there
I'll
a
second that
second?
motion.
Is there a second to that?
Second to that.
All right.
Chris Wilson.
Any discussion on that motion to co-vice chairs?
With all due respect, you can't.
All right, all those in favor?
Well, I mean, you can't.
Why not?
You have a motion already on the floor
Yeah,
that hasn't
you have
been
two.
closed.
Well,
You gotta
Defeat the motion and then,
defeat the motion.
Or the original
Amend.
maker can
Withdraw-
rescind their motion.
Right, same
So
thing.
Chris, you
Withdraw the
rescind your
second.
motion?
Don't forget, we have nominations. I know it's not my meeting, but it's
Right.
nominations as opposed to a motion, which would be
Yeah.
slightly different.
Yeah, you can do it, I'm pretty sure.
what are you saying, Joe?
You only have nominations, you don't have a
Yeah.
motion, that was actually a
Yeah,
motion,
okay.
so you
I
can vote
thought
on
the
the
verbiage
motion.
was I
Okay,
make
so
a
there's
motion that.
nominations, we'll hold the nominations aside. There's a motion for co-vice chairs in a second. Any discussion on that motion?
Can I just say that I think that makes the best use of the town in this committee, quite frankly.
Perfect. No other discussion? All those in favor of co-vice chairmen, Michael Agajanian and Al Correa? Unanimous?
I'll do
Awesome.
them separate. Do the motion, close the motion, and then do the two people's names that are in.
What's that?
That was
So-
the motion,
The
just to
motion,
have two
close the
vice
motion,
chairs.
Oh,
and
I'm
then do the
sorry.
two
I'm
chairs,
sorry.
separate,
Okay.
separate vote.
You're
nested
right.
motions.
I apologize. Okay, so now,
I'll start it off. I nominate Al
nominations
Correa.
for
They're
co-vice
still in.
chairman.
Yeah,
They're still in, we didn't,
Actually-
they're still in, now we can
They're
vote.
still in nominations, but.
Now we have.
No, but you'd have to withdraw the nomination, I'm sorry, withdraw the second, withdraw the nomination,
Because they're co-vice chairs now, they're not.
because they're co-vice chairs now.
Right.
So, you were the second for Michael Agajanian, you withdraw that? You were the nomination, withdraw it?
I will withdraw.
Patrick, you were the second, no, Mitch was second for Al. You were the nomination withdrawn, okay, there's no nominations. Now, I think we got it right, nominations for co-vice
Can
chairman.
I nominate Al Correa for co-vice chair of this committee, please?
Second.
Second.
I'll nominate Michael Akajanian for co-vice chair.
And is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on the nominations? All those in favor of Michael Agajanian and Al Correa as co-vice chairman, we're done. Okay, awesome. Congratulations, gentlemen. Good solution. Next item on the agenda is a project update from school committee and school administration to this committee.
hi everybody, here to meet again. Yeah, so I wanted to give a quick update on school committee. I've taken the point with Kevin on moving this forward, right? And just a few things. I did a fun graphic. You are here. So you'll notice that we're actually before. So the program doesn't start until August 5th, right? And so school committee and the administration especially has been working hard to move things forward, and Kevin will give an update. On the back is kind of a quick update. I emailed that out to everybody the other day. But the good news is we're way ahead of schedule, right? And you know what my intent in the committee is to keep us ahead of schedule with now John and Al, right? And as Patrick said, I'm a pain in the butt, right? And so we're ahead of schedule. You know, here's where we're at. And I'd like to have Kevin just talk about, you know, all the little pieces.
Yeah, so the eligibility period starts August 5th, like Mike said, and it runs from for 270 days, basically, is how it works, before we head into potentially the feasibility process.
What's that date, Kevin, again?
August 5th it says.
It's on the back of your sheet.
So I'm gonna send a form out, just kind of where we are in progress-wise, through probably this week at some point, just so you have this, and I'll keep updating you as we kind of move forward. But there's basically 9 to 10 things we have to complete. The first one's called the initial compliance certification, and what that is that's just reaffirming from the school committee and the select board that we're committed to this project, which is complete. We've done that. The next is the school building committee, forming the school building committee. We've done that. So that's 2. The educational profile, which is due on October 30th, is basically like what we're doing and some of the things we want to look at as part of the new building. And Eamon, along with about, I think, 60 other staff members, have been working on this since since we were invited into the programs. We've had committees going at the high school for like the past 4 or 5 months, and we should have a good draft of the educational profile by the end of August. I'm anticipating. And Josh Otland is a big driver on that. I'm supporting him with it. Josh Otland is the principal of Milford High School, for those that don't know. The other piece, and this is something we're strongly considering, which is the Chapter 74 vocational technical educational viability documentation. The other decision point, aside from the 8th grade and aside from a potential field house, is do we add CTE programs, career and technical education programs under Chapter 74 to the high school. And again, there's a cost attached to that, but there's a real financial benefit long-term for the community as well. And that's another thing we're gonna look at both through the feasibility process, and we're gonna make a proposal, and that's underway as well. Online enrollment projection is due October 30th. We've been talking enrollment, if you've been paying attention to the Milford Public Schools at all over the last like 7 to 10 years, our enrollment has been going up. We're pretty on top of that in terms of where we're going. There's an enrollment meeting that needs to be held. We're going to find out the date to that probably this week when we meet with our MSBA representative, Nina Papakostas. And that's due January 28th. The maintenance and capital planning information, which is well underway, is due also January 28th. And that's just providing information about what we do for maintenance, what we do for capital planning. Alan, the school committee members, can attest that we meet every year a couple times about capital planning. Carlos has moved us along in terms of preventative maintenance and support. He's been doing a fantastic job. We're just documenting everything. The local vote authorization that happened at the last town meeting. The town meeting supported the feasibility study funds, which is a big deal to the committee, or the MSBA. And then the last piece, which doesn't happen until April 28th, is the feasibility study agreement, which we basically sign off on with the MSBA after we've done the other pieces. So any questions on any of that? I would say we had a great advantage because when we were accepted to the program, I think they accepted 14 projects, 18 projects, something like that. But we were put into the last time frame, which really gave us a head start to get a lot of these things done, and we've really taken advantage of that time.
August, the school committee meeting. We should be talking about the education plan, so I would encourage any of you to come to that meeting, especially FinCom. That's where we're going to be talking about Chapter 74 and the education plan, and hopefully school committee will approve it, which will be able to pass it off to this committee moving forward. So that's the August meeting.
Mr. Chairman?
No.
I think one thing that would be helpful is if anybody has any areas they want considered, not to vote on them tonight, not to have discussions, but like for me, 3 things that I would like considered right now without any information are discussion of a field house, discussion of 74, and discussion of the 8th grade.
Yeah.
No question.
And we've had these discussions in open session, not in official session, because, well, I'm on record saying that we don't serve our kids who aren't top academicians as well as I'd like to. Because to get into BVT, we can pretend all we want, but if you're not in the top 10%,
Top third.
Top third.
Quarter.
you ain't getting in. So I think of people, and I'm being self-centered, to be transparent, like my father. He came over, and if you put my father, who came over from Portugal with 4 years school, in an organic chemistry class, he ain't doing very well. So he'll never get into BVT because he'll never be in the top tier of the school. But you give the man a tool, and he was an artist. And it becomes something that I think we can't change BVT. Dr. Fitz has made it into, well, we tried, Mitch, but he's made it into a magnet school. It's fantastic that 90-some% of the kids graduate and go on to college. But I worry about the people like my father who aren't going on to college. And some of the stuff, like, was it 2-3 years ago with the school committee, we talked about the science wing?
Yep.
We walked into from a meeting into C wing, and I remember looking, saying, hey, this is great. It looks just like when I was here in '74. The equipment is still the same. Everything's still the same. So we worked together and got creative on the financing, and came up with $500,000 to upgrade the C wing, the science wing. To me, I want to see more of that if we can. Because I'm the cheapest guy around when it comes to finances, everybody knows, but
Close.
no, I remember, Jonathan, we never had to buy copper wire for Woodland because we threw a penny between you and Aldo, and it got stretched out. We had all the wire we needed. But I think if you have any ideas that you want considered, now would be the time, in my mind, to throw them into a pot. So when we get back together in August, you've had some time to think about it. And, excuse me, the other thing is, please set up a continuing meeting. Any night but the second Wednesday of August, I would beg.
We have it on the agenda to talk about.
Oh, okay.
We're gonna, yeah. Patrick?
I wasn't gonna comment on this, but Al, you brought it to the forefront, and Mike Walsh knows this. When I was on this school committee, one of my most frequent comments was, we do the best that we can to lift up the kids who need help, and we do a great job of giving the kids that are super bright an opportunity to succeed. I think we have to make sure that we're focusing on the kids in the middle. You know, the kids who we have a real opportunity to provide not only an education, but an opportunity for a career, and an understanding that there are more things to do with your life necessarily than go to college. You have to be prepared to do those things. And I think this building needs to account for that. That wasn't why I actually wanted to comment, and that's, I can't agree with you more, Al. You're absolutely 100% correct. I did want to ask Mike about the educational plan that he's talking about, whether this is the short term for the 2024-25 school year, or this is some long-term educational plan that's addressing a larger period of time that it may go into the.
What's required by the NSBA.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's actually the long-term plan, so these are things we're considering. We're not committing to anything, but these are things that we may look at as part of the feasibility study.
So I guess I'd request that we get a copy of those documents.
Yeah, so the August meeting will be talking about the school meeting too.
No, it was a similar comment, Joe Johnny. I assume most of those things that you would talk about, Kevin, will be getting copies of as they complete.
Absolutely.
So at least, we'll
I
know
don't
what
wanna-
you guys have talked about, especially as it relates to staff, faculty and staff that are here in terms of what you're looking at, what they would want. Because I want to make sure that those are incorporated in anything that we do going forward.
And I didn't want to overwhelm everybody with emails.
No, that's fine. I just want to make sure.
I don't want to scare anybody away. Why don't everybody come back to the second one?
Mitch?
Mitch Rossetti, I do, likely because you're going to vote on this prior to us convening again, and the superintendent's here. So obviously the 74 issue, the technical programming, is going to play a role in the design structure of the building, which is why it's part of this process. I kind of have two questions, just because that raises some flags. I mean, we're in Hopedale having a difficult time dealing with BBT, which has been pretty well publicly documented, as is a lot of the feeder communities. But we still fund it. It's one of our schools. So is there something in the charter that prohibits the town of Milford from going after competing programming, one, and two, if we're pursuing Chapter 74 programming, are we going to be pursuing funding from the same pools that BBT gets funding from? So when the town has to fund both institutions, it's kind of like robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? And we're going to be either funding you or BBT or a combination of both if you're competing over the same resources.
So, yeah, that's a lot of complicated questions there, but I'm going to try to give
There
a
was two
concise
questions.
answer. To the first one, we've been working with the Workforce Development Board in Worcester County, just
Sure.
in terms of like what are the trends in terms of professions and jobs that are going to be there in the future. And if you're able to make a case that the need isn't being met by the current programming, you can have a theoretically competing program. Two, I would say, yes, you could have Chapter 74 programs and still send kids to BBT. I don't know which way the town will go in terms of that, long term or even in the short term. And then what was the second question?
The second question is, if you're going to be competing with funding through 74
Yeah.
directly with BBT,
Yeah.
we fund both of you. So the fear is, obviously, you have two institutions that the town is funding that's going to be competing for the same resources. Is it going to cost the town more?
So I think if the demand is there, which we think it is,
Yep.
we wouldn't necessarily be competing, we'd just be expanding the opportunities for the students and the families to take advantage of programming. And so it comes from the same pile of money from the state, the Chapter 74 kind of line item. But I think there's a lot of interest at the state level of expanding these programs because they're seeing they're seeing a lot of demand that isn't being met across the state. So I think there's an appetite for that at the state level.
Thank you.
If that answers your question.
Al?
Couple things. Mike, can you send around contact information for everybody on the committee?
I'm
Yes.
gonna
Cause-
get to that
okay.
in the organizational schedule.
The second thing is, we have a lot of people that I just heard first time on the committee. Thank you for helping the town. But there's certain training that, well, on the school committee, on the finance committee, the open meeting law. You know, I hear Kevin saying, I'm gonna be sending out a lot of emails. Does everybody here understand the obligation of dealing with replies to emails? And
So, two thoughts. Town clerk took care of that. I did have a conversation with our two new members about open meeting law, so please feel free to ask, especially Al.
I also want to talk about what you just said. During the organization scheduling discussion,
Okay.
one of the topics.
Well, I just wanted to make sure we address it when we do
No
it.
question, it has to be addressed. Okay. Anyone else? Then I'm going to pile on to what Al said about Folk Tech schools. We do a wonderful, wonderful job in this building sending kids onto the future. I remember when Milford had many kids, students choicing in because we had something special. We had a string program at Woodland. I'm an old guy, I remember this. We have an opportunity, backing up for a moment, we're going to build the school that the school department tells us to build. We have some input, but they are going to tell us what to build. I'm hoping, and I'm excited about the opportunity to include Voc Tech Chapter 74 programming. Because we have students that are not going to go to college, they can't get into Valley Tech, so their path, they hit a hard stop. They either force their way through our liberal arts program at Milford High School, or they drop out and go into the workforce. But if you want to be a plumber, you want to be an electrician, you want to be an HVAC or refrigeration technician, you are going to have to self-fund it if you can't get into Valley Tech. And we have an opportunity here to not only do a great service to the Milford residents, but potentially, if we have enough space, to have students choicing in because they couldn't get into Valley Tech from Hopedale or Upton, or they couldn't get into Keefe Tech from Holliston, or Tri-County from Medway. There's a real opportunity here. But again, that's driven more from the school committee. If they incorporate this into their long-range education plan and roll back in. When I was on the school committee, I was on from '04 to 2010. We couldn't do it. If it was offered at Valley Tech, couldn't do it. Today, it's my understanding that if we can demonstrate that we're underserved by our regional Voc Tech school, we can do it. That's a game changer for a lot of students here, a lot of students in this town.
Yeah.
the other thing, when you ask what would be the cost to implement a 74 program, I would say it's nominal, because we have 300 and how many kids per class now?
We have about 13 and change at the high school.
So about 300 plus kids, 350 per class. We're gonna have 350. We're not gonna get more Milford kids. We're not gonna create more Milford kids. The incoming for school choice, if we turned on school choice for that, would be money we make. And there'd be a little bit of an incremental cost for shops,
That
but
wasn't my question, Al. My question was competing over the 74 resources. So if BBT doesn't get grants or funding, then we would have to provide additional Milford tax levy to provide that.
and what I was gonna say is, I think it's gonna be nominal,
Right.
Mitch, because when you talk about $70 million, adding a little bit more for the kids who are taking shop, I think will be peanuts.
I'm going to move this along because we're going to get evicted shortly. But there are a few things that I need to discuss. What I'd ask everybody to do, Melissa, I presume, has everyone's email address. I would like if everyone could send an email. Okay, first of all, if you receive an email, please do not reply all. Rule number one. Rule number two, let's not create any serial email threads. I send it to you, you send it to him, he sends it to there. Doesn't work. The discussions happen in the room where we're meeting. It might be here. It more likely will be town hall. But very careful, no reply all, no serial email threads, no serial texting, just the way it has to be. And, okay, so I would like schedule your preferred day to meet, preferred day and time. Never gonna be able to accommodate everybody, but at least it gives me some guidelines. Topics that you want to discuss, whether it's folk tech, whether it's anything, just send it along. Context, I get that, okay. And the final thing that I want to do, because that's organization scheduling, we'll talk about new business for a moment, but along with this process, one of the things that I would like to do, and I've thought it out long and hard, we are almost in the eligibility period, and in 270 days, we need to be a feasibility study. The sooner we get done, the less expensive that school will be. Every week that this takes longer, the cost of this school goes up. We deal with MSBA once a decade. Woodland opened 7 years ago. Just to put it into perspective, that's our newest school. I had some discussion with some individuals, and I actually reached out to the owner's project manager individual from Woodland, who is an incredibly talented individual. When we get the feasibility study, our first order of business will be to appoint an owner's project manager. Requires going through an RFP process, the whole thing. But today, we have the opportunity to hire a consultant, and I'm suggesting we hire a consultant. His name is James Reefstall. He was the individual that was in all the building committee meetings at Woodland as the owner's project manager. And the advantage to that is when we get through all this, he knows the things that we don't even know we don't know. And the price is $150 an hour, not to exceed $10,000. And I move that we engage the services of and I ran it by Brian Murray and Jerry Moody. It does comply if it doesn't exceed $10,000. And I've talked to Rick Villani. I move that we engage the services of James Reefstall as our consultant as we go through this process to get from eligibility period to feasibility study.
Up to
Second.
10 grand.
10 grand.
You have to have a
Up to 10,
motion.
not to exceed 10.
Right.
Not to exceed 10,000.
Second.
Mike. Second. Mike. Any discussion, Patrick?
What's he been doing since last we saw him?
Owner's project manager, building
The
schools.
entire time?
Building schools. Like I said, we deal with MSBA once a decade, he deals with them every week.
Who's he working, who's he working for?
I don't remember the name of the firm. It started as Johnson Lesser, became NV5, it became somebody else, I really don't know. To me, it's not the name on the letterhead, it's who the person is who shows up.
I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about a string of continuous employment doing the same thing since the last time he worked for us. That's what I'm
No, this is just a consultant until you
I
get the
understand.
feasibility, then it goes out to RFP.
I understand.
They could apply, and maybe they'll get it, but different topic altogether. Joe?
What is his scope gonna be? What are we asking him? And I guess I just.
Tell us everything we need to do. For example, chapter 74, advantages and disadvantages. How do you get it done? A question that I had, I called him, when we built Woodland, and we were talking about the high school at the time, if you built a new school and it was MSBA program reimbursement, you could not have a swimming pool, period. Today that's changed. Today you can have the pool, but they won't pay for it. Those are the sorts of things that he knows.
And he's been continuously employed doing this.
Continuously doing building schools.
And this is what he's gonna do as a side job for us.
He will be a consultant for us to help the school department get everything in to expedite so that when we get there, MSBA doesn't push back and say, you missed this and
He's
this.
good, that's worth it in short line.
That's my view, Patrick.
Yeah.
That's why.
Kevin, you said you
know,
worked with him before?
Yeah, he's phenomenal.
Okay.
Phenomenal.
Michael,
Just quick, school committee actually talked about doing something like this a couple months ago, so I think this is a really good idea.
any other discussion? There's a motion and a second. Vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. I will reach out to him. I will ask him to generate a contract for town council's review as to form. Any new business? Then the last order is a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Patrick Collins, second Mike Walsh. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. It's gonna be an exciting project.
Next meeting date on